Welcome to the Gab Design with Gabi. I am your host and the founder of the design cohort. And today I will be talking to Jason Caldeira of Caldeira Co on his design journey. Jason has been freelancing and he has owned his own company for over 20 years. So he will be sharing what that journey has looked like, what has changed, what is going well in 2026, where he thinks the industry is moving and shaking, and gives us some tips and tricks of the trade. So tune in, and without any further ado, here we go. Here we go. Jason, welcome to the Gab Design with Gabi podcast. Thank you for being our guest today.
Of course.
I thought we would have you on to talk a little bit about your journey and what you are up to. I thought, one of the things you had mentioned to me that was really interesting was just that you've been doing this as kind of a solopreneur business owner for a long time, and would love to hear more about that. But before we jump into that, do you want to introduce yourself and like what you do? That would be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I'm Jason Caldeira. I run a small branding and design studio in Chicago called Caldeira Co that I've run with my wife. I've been independent for about half of my career, and my career has been pretty long. Maybe not quite half, actually. Now that I'm doing the math, even longer than that, about 20 years I've been independent. So I think April 1st is my 20-year anniversary of going solo. I've been in the design industry since 1996. I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts from Carnegie Mellon in graphic design. And it's kind of been in my blood my whole life. I actually have something that I wrote when I was in kindergarten that said, when I get older, I want to be a designer. And I don't know how I knew that term. I don't know.
Impressive.
I said fully graphic designer. I think it was because I had a family friend who was an architect and graphic designer. And I think it was kind of one of those, I overheard a conversation, but I've known that was my path since I was little.
Very cool.
My parents had no problem with me spending, 2 hours on my art homework and 15 minutes on my math. They they knew
Super supportive parents.
Yeah,
they weren't cracking the whip to go back to math.
early on. That's what I wanted to do. So I've been blessed to be able to do it my entire career. I don't really know anything else, so I have to keep doing it at this point.
I hear you there.
Yeah, so a bit of my creative journey, if you will. Like I said, I went to Carnegie Mellon, and which was really formative. It was really a spectacular program, and I'm only going to tell this story because it's fresh in my head because I actually just spoke to the Carnegie Mellon class.
That's right. Yes, I saw your post on LinkedIn
Yeah.
just yesterday.
So,
Very cool.
so when I was speaking to them and giving them some backstory, there's like a final critique on your last day of your maybe last week, give or take, before you graduate, where all the professors you had all get in a room, and it was very formal. And I just kind of stood there, and they were all in chairs with their clipboards. And one of the questions they asked that I remember very vividly, they said, "What do you want to do with your design career now that you've graduated, or now that you're graduating?" Um, and I said, what I wanted to do was give high-end design. I don't know what that term necessarily meant, but that's the term I used at the time. High-end design to people who couldn't otherwise afford it. So keep in mind, this is in 1995, 96, give or take. And your path as a designer in the 90s was you basically went for a big agency. That you
Yep.
wanted to work for MTV, you wanted to work for Nike, you wanted to work for these big things. I wanted to work for small businesses. And so what I said to them was, I want to be able to bring high-end design to companies and businesses that couldn't otherwise afford it. And they actually laughed in my critique. And one of the guys said, his name was Mark Mentor, amazing guy. If he's listening, hi Mark. But this was
But I remember what you said.
I remember what you said. He said, you got to make a living, son. And I was like, okay, well. So that I felt a little sheepish, like maybe my idea isn't going to work. And I just dove into to the kind of standard
Typical.
agency
Mm-hmm.
world right from there. But I always had in the back of my head that I really wanted to work with small businesses. I love them. I love the local coffee shops, the ma and pa stores, whatever town you're in. I've always said that, like, if you want to know what a town cares about, look at the small businesses, because you can really get a sense of like what a town, what their values are, what their ethics are based on who they're supporting and the kind of places that they have in the town. That's just been ingrained to me forever. I don't know why. It's just something I've always loved. I grew up
That's
out.
cool though, to identify that passion so early in your career, and I took a look at, your website, and you do work with a lot of local shops and local businesses, right? So you made that come to fruition.
That's basically literally what I do. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I niched down about 6 years ago to being almost exclusively small business, small to mid size, right? Because I do still need to make a living. Listen,
Well, sure.
can't,
Fair
can't
enough. We'll give
always
you that.
yeah, can't always provide the dollars that I need, but I kind of don't care. Um, I to an extent I had to restructure my definition of success to being less about position, job title, salary, benefits, the sort of things that we call success. And for me, it's
Yeah.
like, how much can I help my client grow? How far can I take them?
What does success feel and look like is you had to reframe that, is what
I
you're
had to.
saying.
That's exactly right. I had to completely
Fascinating.
and the moment that I did, my career could not have gone better ever since then.
Do you
Um,
feel more fulfilled unless like you're just chasing kind of like something?
actually more fulfilled, and the clients that I work with, and more so the clients I choose to work with, because I don't take everybody on. I'm a little bit selective.
Ooh.
Um,
Ooh, there's a statement.
the clients that I
That's
choose to
bold.
work with are extremely appreciative. They're all good friends. We support each other. Um, I'm going to give one quick example, but Big Shoulders Coffee in Chicago is one of my longest time clients. I've worked with them since they were roasting bags of 5 pounds at a time in the garage. Now they're kind of a mainstay in Chicago. They're really
I was gonna
successful.
say for those not in Chicago, that seems like it sounds like a pretty like Chicagoan thing.
It is very
Okay.
Chicago thing. Yeah, they're doing quite well. They have maybe 4 or 5 different cafes in the city. Every store in the city sells their stuff, but more so, they're actually a very behind the scenes roaster. So if you go to a restaurant, you're probably drinking their coffee. Um,
Oh,
they
okay.
might not broadcast it, but they did a big
So
hospitality.
local distribution. Okay, I'm familiar with that model. There was a really cool coffee shop in Wisconsin where I lived that did exactly that. And they're you could go in and get coffee, but they really weren't like a coffee shop.
Right.
So very familiar with that
And
model.
these
That's
guys,
very cool.
they toe that line. But the reason I wanted to bring them up is, they've become good friends. I don't see them with frequency. We still do everything remotely. But 10 years ago, my dad passed away from cancer. And so I became on the board with the American Cancer Society for an event called Taste of Hope, which is like a restaurant tasting event. And I reached out to my client and said, "Would you be the coffee provider?" And they, without thinking twice about it, they said, "Sure."
That's
Um,
cool.
they've been with them for 10 years. They've actually been with them longer than I have. So they have stayed on as the coffee provider for Taste of Hope
Wow,
all
because you
during the
made that
time of the
connection.
product, because we made that connection. And so that's the kind of relationship that I have with the large majority of my clients.
Very
Um,
cool.
I have a quick line that is on my website. It came to me organically when I first said it, but now I've repeated it so many times that it's kind of become almost a tagline, where I say that a lot of businesses and a lot of companies are really good at winning business. I'm really good at keeping it. So
Ooh,
so
nice.
so once I have a client relationship, I tend to work with them indefinitely.
Yeah. And do you have support in that, or is it you and your wife? Like, how do you kind of do the client management, account management type of stuff? Is it all you, what we're seeing right here?
Pretty much. It's pretty much
Wow.
me. And, I don't farm anything out. It's part of why I'm selective with the kind of clients I want to bring on, because I don't just take on a project to then pass it off to an intern or to pass it off to somebody I found on Fiverr. I want to be a designer. I like to do the work, which is why a big part of why I work for myself, not just do that I enjoy it, but I've been in the industry for 30 plus years, and I would be nothing but a meeting taker if I worked at an agency. I would be a creative director somewhere. I would take meetings and I'd go from meeting to meeting and oversee creative, but I wouldn't be sitting at a computer and designing it myself. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no interest in that. I like to do it. So yeah, so with my clients, I take on the role of all the admin responsibilities as well as design. My wife has a little bit of a different stake. She has a design background as well. Was a designer when she graduated, and then her love of small business took her into being a cheesemonger. So she was a cheesemonger for the better
What
part of
is a cheesemonger? I'm sorry. What
she
is
she literally sold cheese, and she worked with
Okay.
farms and cheese, and she worked in London for a short amount of time, at a place called Neal's Yard Dairy, where she actually got to work in the cheese caves where they were like aging the cheeses and things. And so she found a love of people that do one thing brilliantly, for like
Mm.
generations, right? Somebody who makes this certain cheese that you can only get in this area, or this person who raises goats for milk for this thing, or breweries who are like so into their beer that they have to talk to you about, the hops that they got. That's where our excitement kind of came from. So she was a designer, but then she really dove into this more independent um, food and beverage kind of world. And then we decided to have a family. So she decided to take a step back from all that. And she raised our kids for 10 years. And then recently went back to work as like a full-time gig, but then also brings to Caldeira Co a lot of experience in retail, a lot of experience in layouts of spaces. The flow of, if you have a physical space, what the flow feels like, where you're greeted, and then also how to actually speak to customers and how to kind of, it's so when I can do the branding side, she can do the on-site experience side, and we can bring a whole lot to a client if they have a brick and mortar shop.
I was gonna say, I saw on your kind of online website and your portfolio and everything that you had a lot of like experiential kind of restaurant, cafes, that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
So is that the kind of client you tend to get, or is it more broad than that?
No, there's certain industries that once you're in there, you tend to stay in there. And restaurants are definitely one of them, because after I got my first restaurant client, I everything else was a referral. And it
Hmm.
was, oh, you know this guy, you got to work with this guy. Hey, you know this guy, let me introduce you to this guy. And then you just kind of like stay in the circle. Um, Cafes were like that, breweries are like that, distilleries are like that, where they get to know each other and the industry tends to work with each other.
They
It's
want
not
to work with people they know that they can trust,
exactly.
understands
I
their
mean, to an extent,
problem.
it's not too dissimilar from design, where maybe when you're younger there's competition, but as you get older, it's more of like a family that you can kind of like share ideas with. And some of these industries are very much like that. They're in competition technically, but they're not in competition. They want to. The more that everybody succeeds, the more everybody succeeds.
You kind of grow up together. It's like, oh, you did that one, do this for my friend, do that for the other guy, do this for the
Sure.
next person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the large majority of the business that I've ever gotten, and I mean 95% of it has been word of mouth. It's all been connections from clients that I've worked with, happy clients who refer me to somebody else, old friends who know a guy who's opening a thing. I mean, that's
Yep.
where I get my work.
Okay. So even since like day one, has it mostly been word of mouth?
Yeah. So day one, I'll give you a quick day one story. If it when I guess I didn't really give you entirely my journey.
Yeah, let's back up this train a minute.
I
Like,
will back up a little bit because
how did you get where you are?
yeah. So my first job out of school was a somewhat standard agency, with a wide variety of clients, from sports celebrities like Terry Bradshaw that was doing health campaigns, to like pharmaceutical campaigns and stuff that wasn't really all that sexy, but it was really interesting because this is in 90 from 96 to 2000, give or take.
Totally different world back then,
Totally
right?
different world back
Yeah.
then. Yeah. And
Yeah.
everything was print. Everything was stressful because when it's print and you're going on press and you're, aligning, making sure that Eli Lilly's color is consistent and making sure there's no typos and making sure that, because you're
Once
printing
you hit
hundreds of
print, there can
thousands,
be no mistakes.
it's high stakes stuff
Yeah.
for high dollar clients. So I learned a ton. From there, I went to the web world. So in 2000, when the dot-com boom happened, I was all into it. I loved it. It was totally new, felt totally fresh to me. So I dove in and I was the art director at a small web shop called Ignition State at the time. And within less than a year, they were gone. Within about 6 months of it, I was laid off.
Mm.
Which anyone who went through the dot-com era knows
It
that
was
that was
very
like
typical.
they threw so much money at so many things and then dried up just as fast. Um, so from there, I walked very seamlessly right across the street, actually, to my new job, which was working for the Oprah Winfrey Show. So I worked for Harpo Studios for about 4 years as the art director of Oprah.com.
No way. That's pretty cool. Did you get a car? That's what we want to know.
I did not get a car, but and
Darn.
actually, and I didn't get one of the bigger benefits too. If I don't know if you ever watched the show, but
Oh, I watched the show.
there was an episode where she took the entire staff to Hawaii. I quit about
Uh,
6 months before that.
ah,
so I
bad
didn't get to
timing.
enjoy that, but I did get to go to her 50th birthday party, which was one of the most fascinating moments of my entire life.
Did
Watching
you
it
ever talk to her?
a couple times in passing. Maybe more of my embarrassing moments happened when I happened to walk past her in long hallways where it was like I saw her at the end of the hallway. and there's no way out of the hallway, and it's just me and her walking towards each other. And you're like, what do I look at? That's
You're
not.
like, do I say hi? Do I not say hi? Do
She,
keep
she got
walking?
she got in line behind me one day at Margarita Day that they were just having for the staff, and I just looked at her and I said, "You can probably go in front."
Go
These little
ahead in front
micro,
of me.
yeah, my little micro moments of like being terrified. She was wonderful. It was a great job, but
That's
I'll
fun.
like to say from a branding perspective and a design perspective, it was very limited. There's only so much you can do with the Oprah brand.
Oh,
You
I
know,
bet.
she's a brand, she's a person, she's an aesthetic, she's a magazine, she's a name.
Hmm.
So you just kind of executed the brand, and there was really no creativity. So it was amazing that I stayed there as long as I did. Um,
How long were you there again?
I was there for about 4 years. So,
Oh,
which at
that's
the time
pretty
was,
long
was
stint.
half
Yeah.
my career. So that was
Especially for somewhere you're doing the same thing kind of over and over and
over and
over.
over and over again. And
Yeah.
it was a pretty toxic environment for a lot of reasons that I won't get into. But anyway, so I decided, like, you know what, I've had enough of this world. I want something totally different. And coincidentally, a friend of mine said, "Oh, I know this guy who needs an art director and a creative director at a food ingredients company in Beloit, Wisconsin." And I was still living in Chicago. So Beloit was like a 2 hour drive out and like 3 hours back in traffic.
Okay.
I'm not going to leave Chicago yet. I'll do this job for 1 year and I'll just do the commute. I won't question it. I won't like, you know,
That is so smart.
I was like, I could do
So
anything
smart.
for 1 year, right? I'll just do it for a year and just see where I want to go creatively from there. So at the end of 1 year, pardon my French, but I was like, fuck this. I cannot take this commute anymore. The job was great. The people were great, but I was like, I am killing myself in the car 5 hours a day. It was not working for me anymore. So I went in to quit and I pulled my boss in and he said, before you say anything, I have to tell you, I just found out they're letting the entire department go.
Yeah.
Like,
He just
oh,
wanted to beat you to the punch.
yeah. Well, so now I'm getting severance when I was just about to quit. So that's great. They gave us like 3 months.
Oh, he's like, don't say, that's really smart though. That's nice of him to say that. Like,
Yeah.
hey, before you say
Wouldn't say
anything,
anything.
because if you
Yeah,
quit first, you don't get severance.
exactly. So I got severance,
Nice.
and they also said that they would pay for anything that we needed to help with our job search. So I said to my boss at the time, "What are we going to do? Let's you and I do something." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Let's start an agency. Let's start like a little group." And he's like, "Okay, let's do that." So my
There's the
former boss,
pitch right there.
yeah, so my former boss, and then the friend of mine who introduced me to this boss, who was a long time good friend of mine and colleague, who I still work with both of them. The three of us decided to start a group, and what was exciting about it was not only do we have 3 months to figure it out because we had some salary coming in, but this client who had just fired us still needed the work done. So we took them on as our first client.
Ah,
So
smart. That's
now they're
brilliant.
paying us 4 to 5 times as much money to do the work independently. Instead of having
Man, that
else.
worked out for you. Yeah.
Oh, and they were our client for probably close to 10 years.
Nice.
So had I not had that really, really easy transition, I'm not sure I would have gone independent, but I knew I always wanted to.
Hmm.
That just made it way more
But you
palatable.
didn't, it sounds like at that moment, you didn't even hesitate. You're
No,
just like, let's just go do this.
yeah,
Like in the,
let's do it. It's time.
yeah,
I was single. I had just met my now wife, so we were dating, but we weren't married yet. We didn't have kids. There was all sorts of things, and it was like now or never. This is the time to do it.
yeah,
Um,
that's really cool because so many people have the thought, but then they're like, not now, or I just got laid off. Let me go look for another job.
yeah,
And they just kind of keep the cycle, even if they have that urge to like want to go out on their own. But you didn't hesitate. You jumped right in.
I jumped right in, largely because the stars aligned, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I'm just glad I had
Yeah.
an easy way to do it. But it's kind of like cousin of mine told me something way before we had kids. She said, "If you wait until you're ready to have kids, you'll never have kids.
Oh, exactly. There's
Just
never
nobody's
a
ever ready.
right time. Yeah, people are like, I'm waiting for the right time. I have
There's
kids
no right
too,
time."
so
Yeah.
there is no right time.
So starting a
Yeah.
business is not dissimilar from that. It's
Yeah,
always a risk. It's
that
always
is very
scary.
true. Yeah.
You're always going into uncharted waters. It's always a new experience. So,
Hmm.
if it's something you want to do, my recommendation to anyone who may be listening is just do it. Just start doing it in some
Yeah.
capacity. Don't
Because the
wait.
stars will never 100% align to say like it's like the light's going to shine on you and go, oh, it's time.
Yeah.
You
Don't wait for it to
know?
be easy because it won't be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a similar thing with the design cohort and the stuff I'm doing. I get this all the time from people is like, how did you do it? How did you like get started? I was like, I just did it. I just one day posted on LinkedIn and said, I'm starting a community for designers. And they were like, that's it? That's how you started? I'm like, yeah, just one day I got fed up and said, it's time. And I just did it that day, similar to you. I didn't hesitate. It was like, it's now or never, you know? So I
Yeah,
think that's a really great story of like, you can't wait. You can't keep waiting, right?
exactly. And so I worked with I call them the gyms. So it's a gym and another gym.
Oh, that's funny.
So I worked with them. Uh, well, we started 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and then one of the gyms and I kind of spidered off to just explore a different area. So the first gym is in Caledonia, Illinois. You probably don't know where that is. You might know Rockford, and it's near Rockford, Illinois, which is
Yeah, yeah.
another major city in Illinois.
Really, all I know in Illinois is Chicago.
And that's
But I'll play along.
but then my other business partner, the other gym, is in Louisville, Kentucky. So
Okay.
a lot of the work was coming in near Rockford, and the other gym and I that's in Louisville decided like, well, maybe we should try to spin off a little bit, still work with the other company, but then do something where we can like focus our attention on an untapped market for us, which was Louisville. So we did that for a long time. And then as work there slowed down and I started getting more, I'm just going to call it freelance work, meaning work that was just me. It
Yeah.
was it was work that didn't need my partners. Um, it was a whole bunch of kind of quick design needs. I don't need an agency, but I need this thing done. Can you help me? Can you help me? I started to get so much of that maybe 6 years ago or so. Um, at the end of the year when I was doing my taxes, I was like, 80% of my income for the year came from my own thing that felt like throwaway stuff, like felt like just quick stuff.
Yeah.
Like if most of my work is coming in here and I've never advertised. I didn't even formalize a name. I wasn't Caldeira Co yet. I was just Jason Caldeira, a designer that was getting more work than my other, mini agencies were bringing in. I was like, I think I need to pivot and just go where the work is and where it's
Yeah.
naturally taking me. So I still work with the two gyms, not nearly as often as I would like to, largely because of the kind of projects that end up in my lap. But around that same time, I had been working on a personal logo for my family. And the logo was this is kind of silly. At the time, I thought that I wanted to open a little coffee shop. So I had this idea. I'm gonna
Ironically.
yeah, exactly. Call it the Caldera.
Don't tell your biggest client.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna call it the Caldera Coffeeist, and it's gonna be the logo was gonna be two C's, a C and a C for Caldera Coffeeist, and then in the logo, and if you look at any of my website, you'll see the logo in the corner. It's a C and a C interlocking, but then it's also a J for Jason, a J for Julian, my son, and then a lowercase e for Aaron, my wife, and an E for my son, Emmett. So it's two C's, two
That's a
J's.
lot in the logo.
Yeah. So two C's, two E's, two J's, and then they come together in like a little heart, which is so it was a logo
Cute.
I just did for my family. It was just something I did like
I'll
on
have to pick, you'll have to send that to me and I'll flash it up
yeah,
on screen
it'll
as
be
you're
it's
talking
on
about it.
caldeiraco.com. It's now become our company logo.
Very
Um,
cool.
but so what happened was I was working on a podcast with a friend of mine who's an actor. His name's Mike Nelson, and he has a trivia podcast. And I helped him with some graphic design stuff for it. And at the end of the podcast, he said graphic design by Jason Caldeira and Caldeira Co. So he said Caldeira Co
He
before
named
it
you?
actually was a company. He basically named me. Because he had
You're
seen that
like, and that's it.
I had written something as Caldeira Co, but then all of a sudden he's blasting this thing out to thousands of people, and I was like, well, that's my sign to actually
Yeah.
make Caldeira Co official. So
I'm picking up a theme with you is you're really good at like that's my thing, that's my sign, let's go. And you
I
just
follow
like go with it.
a lot of signs as I can.
Follow where the signs are pointing you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
funny. I,
great.
I wouldn't have said that about myself, but as I'm actually saying it and you pointing that out, that's pretty much my entire existence is just following
Yeah.
following
Well,
where
that's good though, because a lot of people ignore the signs. Like, Here I am 20 years later, still, stuck where,
And for as stubborn as I
hoping.
am, I guess I'm not so stubborn that I think like, nope, I'm just gonna do this and I'm gonna do it like
Hmm.
this if it kills me. It's more like, oh, well, let's see what this is like. Well, let's go over here for a bit. Let's
Yeah. Do you tend to
around.
be more planned or more spontaneous kind of person?
Way more spontaneous.
Okay.
My wife
Yeah.
and I hate planning across the board. If we do plan, it's like 2 days before, and everyone we know is like, "I've been booked up for months." Like, sorry, so we just don't
Yeah.
we don't plan things. It
That's
doesn't.
kind of refreshing, though, I have to say.
You
There's
know,
so many people that are overplan these days. You can't even see your friends anymore because they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, like 6 weeks from now, maybe I can pencil you in." You're like, forget it.
I completely agree. And I think part of why we don't like planning is because for it definitely happened more when we had kids, which was you could only plan for so much, and something always messes up the plan.
Yeah.
So
Someone
over
gets
time, we just
sick.
stopped. Yeah, someone gets sick. The kid is sick. The babysitter, calls in and says that she can't make it. Something always happens with parenting, and I think that kind of just ingrained in us. Like, just go with the flow and go
It's
where
just
the
easier.
it's easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You're not
better
disappointed. I had
than
plans to go somewhere and now I
that's
can't.
exactly.
You're just never disappointed.
So that just kind of came naturally to us. So,
Yeah.
so that was the origin of Caldeira Co. Was me deciding like I'm gonna focus my attention here. My friend, God bless his soul, basically named me, even though I kind of used that name, he didn't make it up. But the second that he said it was the moment that I
It
was like, oh,
sounded
I am now.
right. Yeah. You're
Yeah,
like,
it
that sounds
sounded
kind of
right.
cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It felt right. And I already had the logo, didn't even know it because, Caldera Coffeeist, it's still Caldeira Co. So I was able to use the exact same CC logo and just kind of,
Repurpose, man. That's like half the battle is like make it easier, not harder for yourself.
and when I did that is when I decided to really niche down. That's when I decided,
Okay.
like, if I get big projects, I still want to work with my partners. But the projects I was getting were smaller projects that didn't necessarily need the full weight of what these guys offered. So it's like, I'll take those on. I'm going to niche down to small business and just focus on that. And I've been doing that for 5 or 6 years, give or take.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And that's going pretty well for you, even with like everything going on last year in 2025.
Yeah, it's always challenging, largely because, and I know I think I mentioned this to you when we met in the meeting the other day. Like, the large majority of my clients are small businesses, and they've been so negatively impacted
Yeah.
that it naturally trickles down to me, right? So what I've seen as a little bit of a change in the industry is a lot of the stuff that used to go out to younger designers, interns, or even veteran designers. A lot of that work is just gone because a lot of the entry level design kind of work is being done on Canva. It's being done with a
Give us
DIY
examples of what that kind of work
things
is.
like something like a sell sheet or a social media graphic, which obviously didn't exist 20 years ago, but those kind of smaller little one-off things, all of that used to be done by designers. For 20 years ago, you used an entry-level designer, you used an intern, somebody that you can afford that wasn't charging too much, but you didn't have any capability of doing it unless you had, you happen to have a Mac Plus, and you had someone who pirated Photoshop for you. Like, you didn't really have the access or the abilities to do even entry level basic stuff.
Need a small sign for a table or an
Exactly.
event or something like
Exactly.
that.
I need a resume. I mean, graduating college, I was designing resumes for friends for a while, as like side money,
There's a job.
as like because
Yeah.
they had the ability to do that. They
Hmm.
had typewriters, and
Yep.
it just all that work is the work that's going away, which is okay for veterans. It's okay for people who have been in the industry for a while or younger people who are really talented. It's not okay for people trying to get their feet wet, who are just like trying to learn the industry, who maybe don't have a degree in design, but they have a passion for it and they're really good at it, kinda. They're going to be the most heavily impacted, I think. Um,
Yeah.
which was, when I was talking to the Carnegie Mellon students the other day, I had to make sure that they know that their competition is not other designers. Their competition is AI and ChatGPT.
Oof.
And
What was the conversation there?
it was more about like what they're going to do when they graduate because a lot of this entry level stuff doesn't exist anymore.
Is that like something they express concern in? And, you know, like what is the sentiment with the younger generation?
Yeah, they do express concern, but at the same time, they are so advanced compared to what we were at the time
Mm.
because they have these tools. So, I mean, they're graduating with a portfolio that looks like mine 10 years into my profession. I mean, they're so far advanced. So I don't think there's a lot of concerns from them. They're coming out with some confidence. Like, I just need to know where to go, what kind of job to look for. But it just show how much the industry's changed. So
Yeah,
the
that's
industry is
amazing.
no longer spitting out sell sheets, and charging a ton of money for them. They're no longer doing media buys and charging 80% on top of it and making their money that way. It's like agencies are struggling because a lot of the work that used to go to small agencies is going to even smaller agencies or independent contractors or freelancers. Um, the big industry stuff is always going to be big industry stuff. They're always going to work. The Cokes are always going to work with the landors, and that's just kind of the way
Mhm.
a big industry works. But that big industry is not as influential as it used to be. You know,
Yeah, even that industry is becoming super fragmented, which is
it
the
is.
industry I come from.
Yeah.
I spent my career in, where the big conglomerates became too inflated,
Mhm.
and so we saw a lot of work going to boutique firms. They're bringing in in-house people. That model's changed completely. I mean, the agency model that we know of, the Mad Men kind of era agency model, is changing as we speak. In part because of everything we just talked about, AI, but also just their prices became way too big. We're paying for their companies are paying for their infrastructure, their politics, their hierarchy. And it's like, oh, we can do away with all that and still get great work from smaller agencies that aren't charging us for all that bureaucracy. So there's a whole mess going on there too right
and
now
the
that's
and the
shaken
work has
out.
suffered. The work has suffered considerably from the big agencies because they do need to make money. So what they do is they're amping up their fees and giving the work to younger designers to just kind of crank it out. And you can tell the
Yeah.
work is not Mad Men era work. The
Well, yeah, there's that. Yeah.
quality of the work is not what it used to be from the big agencies because the little guys are really picking up steam. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of the little guys. Of course I love a good David and Goliath story, but I do feel like clients are way more comfortable working with a smaller company than they used to be. When I went independent 20 years ago with my partners, we had a lot of clients that had a very hard time with the fact that we couldn't always do in-person meetings.
Mm,
And that was 20 years ago. And we were like, we were doing, go-to meeting. Zoom didn't exist yet. And that was really a struggle because they were
I
like,
bet. I bet.
they were used to
They're
Asian.
like, what is go to?
They were like, agencies come in and they do the big pitch and they dress up and they shake the hand and we walk out. Like, that's how it works. And we're like, but it doesn't have to, because I'm in Chicago, my partner's in Rockford, my other partner's in Louisville. We can still work with you, even though, you're in California. We can still work with you. Um, And that took a good 5 or 6 years before companies felt really comfortable. And now it's like the norm. I mean, now people are like annoyed by an in-person meeting.
I was about to say, like, sometimes I'm like, this just seems annoying. Why we gotta go in person? Yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
So I think the fact that clients have caught up a little bit to some of that technology stuff, or their comfort level has changed. They no longer see like, I don't want to risk my money with three guys who can't even be here in a meeting. I'm only going to use a big agency. Now they're kind of like, I'm not seeing returns from that big agency. Let me try
yeah,
these little guys, these three guys.
100%.
Um,
Well, and their bureaucratic systems inflate timelines, and people need to move faster. And they're seeing the more people in that meeting room for that agency review, it means I'm paying you, I'm paying you, I'm paying you, I'm paying you, I'm paying you. It's like you don't want seven people showing up from the agency anymore because you start going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Like how many people walk through the door? That's why my project is so expensive. When you can go work with a boutique firm, that maybe has, the talent is actually spent on the designers, not necessarily on the infrastructure, to support the client.
exactly.
Which a lot of that was actually like two client, account managers and like all stuff that was not creative. It was like stuff to support client management, account management, project management. So all this other stuff. And you're like, and I have one or two designers on my account. So I think, yeah, that equation is flipping very rapidly. And I think that's changing the model completely. So, which can, to your point, be a huge flip for a lot of small boutique or independent or consult. I mean, we're seeing a lot more fractional roles, like fractional creative director, fractional brand strategist, all these things coming up because of this kind of model kind of being flipped on its head. People are trying to reconfigure it, which can be really great for small business owners like yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, we spearheaded that sort of model 20 years ago when the three of us went independent, where we would talk to our clients and we're like, you're only paying for the people that are in the room. You're not paying for a
You
board.
were ahead of your time.
Well, we really were, and again, that
You
also
were.
felt very strange to them. Uh,
Yeah.
but we've still kept this going, and when I opened the second business, which was called Nerve Collective, we called it Collective because at that point, we had 25 years experience under our belt, and we worked with so many different people, most of
You
which were
pull.
independent.
Hmm.
So we would tell our clients, like, if you need a video guy, we have someone we work with. He's not going to be in the meeting until you need him. If you need a social media expert, we have that person. She's in Colorado. She's amazing. You'll talk to her when you're ready, but you're
Yep.
not paying for any of them. First of all, we're not marking them up. You will bill them independently, but these are all people that we trust, that we've worked with, that we know we can rely on. Um, Different designers that I worked with for different things that were maybe out of my capacity and not largely digital. It's like, I'm going to introduce you to this person and we're going to oversee the project, but you're going to build them directly. The client and that vendor are going to work together on their own.
It wasn't like a markup as you as the in between person.
Exactly. So we're like, we're not marking any of that up, and maybe we should have, right? Maybe I'd be fiscally more responsible to mark them up, but I felt like that was a crappy way to work with a client, especially because
Yeah.
clients were so aware that it was happening with the big agencies. So, like, what's an easy way for us to look different is to not do what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean
You
you
know?
do the opposite. Exactly. What's their pain point and you serve them a different experience than that. I
Exactly.
worked with an agency in a very similar way where, I was working with a big conglomerate, big guy, and they weren't cutting it, so we brought in like more of a boutique collective type of approach to amp up a project, and it was refreshing, it really was. So I think, I'm a huge fan of that model. I'm a huge fan of like working with the right team, the right people, not being kind of handcuffed to, necessarily a contract that procurement created. Or in some cases, these weren't even like full on contracts. They were just like soft, contracts. Like, oh, we've had an ongoing relationship for decades, therefore we have to keep it going. And it was just why, it's not doing anything for anyone. The work is suffering. And that's when it's really hard as a creative leader to be like, why are we doing this if the creative isn't delivering? There's a better way, working with people like yourself that are really in service to the work and not to some system that's been created and developed.
Exactly. I mean, and to that point, we never did retainers. We rarely did hourly billing. We did sometimes, but I'm not a fan of that. I don't like subject.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm so glad you brought that up because tell me more about that. Like, what is your philosophy approach to billing? How much, like, setting your worth?
Good questions, and it changes all the time. But I will say, we were a very small number of clients make more sense hourly. And those are the kind of clients that it's like they don't know what they're going to need at any given moment. They just need stuff quick. They need it. It's nimble. And they're like, I need, like, I'm working with a client called Smith System right now, which is like a truck driver school kind of business. And the work that I do for them is hourly because it makes sense to be hourly because they just kind of, oh my God, I need a sell sheet. Oh, I need this quick thing. I need this PowerPoint slide. I need this. And I couldn't possibly do estimates and proposals for all this stuff and have it make any sense. So
Yeah.
I just run the clock, bill them at the end of the month, and that's it. But that's largely tactical design, right? It's just I'm executing something specific. I'm not overseeing the brand. I'm not redesigning the brand. They actually just did a redesign outside of me. So it's literally just taking their assets and making sense of them and spitting it out the other end. So that makes sense to me for that sort of
Or transactional.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a transactional thing, and that's fine. Most of the work that we did with my other partners was heavy on the creative side. It's creative work. It's brand strategy and it's brand development, and then it's packaging design and it's visual identity design and website. all of that hourly makes no sense because we're really good at what we do. So we work fast. So you get penalized when you work fast because you know what you're doing. It's like you
Hmm.
financially penalized. I mean, I could, do an entire company's entire visual brand in an afternoon, but should I charge 3 hours for that? Of course not. That doesn't
Right.
make
It's
sense.
the work you're delivering and the thinking and all the experience behind it is worth way more than that.
Worth way more than that. It's like that old, I don't know if this is an old wives' tale, if it actually happened, but there was something where somebody asked Picasso to draw a picture for him on a napkin, and he drew a picture and handed it to him and said, that'll be $10,000. And he said, but it took you 5 minutes. He said, but it took my entire career to learn how to do it in 5 minutes.
Yes, I love that story.
I don't, story probably is just a story, but I think it does illustrate the point. It's like, just because I'm fast doesn't mean I should be penalized for that. Quite the opposite, actually. If you want this quickly in your hands at this really high level of execution, that's a premium price.
Yeah, another
Not
one
the
I love. I don't know if you've heard this one, but Frank Lloyd Wright apparently drew out the plan for Falling Water in an evening, the evening before the people that were coming to see the plans arrived. So he just pulled an all-nighter basically. But the story goes that he had it all drawn out in his head. It was just a matter of putting on paper. He had been working on it, for months, thinking about it, marinating on it, envisioning it, but it was just not on paper yet. It was in his head. So I think that's the other kind of thing with creatives. Like we're always envisioning, we're always brainstorming. It's like we're probably doing our best work away from the screen,
yeah.
right? It's like people are like, oh no, you have to have butts and seats, or they're not bringing their value. And I think for creatives, it's the exact opposite. It's like you want your creatives out in stores, shopping, doing what makes them kind of think, because that's where real creativity is happening.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I'm actually working on a project now that is hourly, and I'm kind of having a hard time billing the proper hours to it because so much of it is spent with me with a book and me with a pencil and me walking around thinking.
You just have like a timer on your phone,
I do, but there's
like,
also a guilt
like a
that
lawyer.
I mean, I do have a timer on my phone that I use for all this stuff, but there's a certain guilt that comes with that because I feel like I should only be charging hours where I'm sitting and executing. But
Yeah.
meanwhile, I was thinking about it for 4 hours and doing nothing else. So that time's valuable too. And that's part of why hourly doesn't really work for creative thinking.
I agree completely. Yeah.
So yeah, so I always do flat rate. Every client is different based on, I don't have a set rate because every client has a different set of parameters, whether it's their internal budgets that I like to try to work towards as I can. Um, like here's an example. So in the restaurant world, I was speaking to one of my clients and I was trying to explain to him because he had a low budget for this one project we were doing, a big budget for the first time we worked together. And then he felt a little sheepish about the second time because he didn't have a whole lot of money to devote to it. And he was worried that the work was going to suffer. So this was the comparison I gave to him. And I think it's pretty relevant just in general. I said, okay, he was a restaurateur. You can get the best meal you've ever had in your life for $500 a person, right? It would be top ingredients, top everything. You could also get the best meal you've ever had in your life for $10 at an amazing diner.
Two different experiences.
But what's the difference between those two? It's not that the chef's necessarily better trained, right? There could be some really entry level or I'll say I don't know, lowbrow sort of restaurants that are run by these amazing guys who just love making Italian beef. So I'm going to use like
Oh, yes.
Bear as an
The
example.
Bear. I was about to say. Love
Chicago
that
zone.
show.
But it doesn't mean they're giving less care. It's not about time, and it's not always about education, but it's more about how you work with the materials that you have. So the ingredients that you have, or so one guy's working with hamburger patties, one person's working with, I don't know, name premium ingredient here. They're both amazing meals. They both cost completely different things. Neither one of them suffers. So I was telling him, like, you have less of a budget for this. All it's going to do is make me execute on what I know, as opposed to maybe exploring things. I'm
Yeah.
not going to explore a bunch of ideas. I'm just going to kind of execute something that I know. It's going to be great. It's going to be on budget, but it's not going to be maybe we're not going to
Half
have,
baked.
yeah, and we're not going to have
Yeah.
the budget to be like, did you maybe try this? Can you try this? Can you maybe try? We don't have that kind of budget.
Therein lies the difference, right? Like I was gonna ask you because sometimes the trap isn't so much doing the work, it's in the iteration of the amount of iterations the client's going to need or ask for, and that's very situational. Have you found like a magic way to approach that with clients that are more iterative than others?
Uh, Not really, other than budget.
Yeah.
Budget is really what dictates how much thinking and ideation and creativity and play that I can actually have for the project. If their budget's less, then I basically solve their problem for them and hand it to them. I'm not iterating. I'm not doing a whole bunch of things. I'm not
How do
giving.
you manage that? Like, do you manage that in the proposal? Like, hey, this is what you're going to get for this amount of money. It's kind of like a one and done solution, and I walk away. And if you want more, you got to pay for it. Or like, how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much a handshake deal kind of person. I try to keep things. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick story, and again, this is fresh in my head because I was just explaining this to the students the other day. You know how when there's that drawing that's like two silhouettes facing each other, or it's a vase, and like
Yes.
and how you look at it, it's one of those two things. What I try to do with a client is before I show that picture, I tell them they're about to see a photo of a vase, and the vase is black and it's really detailed. And then when you show that picture, that's all they see is the vase. If I take that exact same picture and I said, you're going to see two white silhouettes, the two faces, they're facing each other, and then I hand them that's all they're going to see. Right. As opposed to, here's a picture. What do you see? Do you like it?
Ah, I love that. So you're
I see a vase.
preempting what they're going to see,
I'm
planting
preempting
the
what they're going to see.
seed so
Yes.
they see what you need them to see to keep things moving.
That's exactly it. So when I'm doing like a branding project or visual brand, I do 90% of the presentation is how I got to the last 10%. So by the time we're actually looking at something, they've been like, yep, 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 yep. You're totally on it. Got it, got it. So now the actual visual execution is just like the icing on the cake. They've agreed to
Yep.
everything else. So what's important about that is even if they don't like the visual execution at the end, they've agreed to the other 90% already. Okay, so if this isn't the visual execution, let me do a new one that is based on all this that you've agreed on. And I found that process, by the end of it, there's always tweaks and nudges,
Yeah.
always. But more often than not, with a very light failure rate, I mean, I would say maybe 80 to 90% of the time I present like that, the direction that I presented is almost exactly what ends up getting done. As opposed to when I was a younger designer and you'd give them like, here's 6 different logos to choose from, and here's a bunch of different pads, and here's what do you think? I don't know. Can you take part of one and put it with part of three and take it to and then now you're just like this jumbled mess
Yep.
of, and you don't have that creative thought, and you also don't have the agreement on all the steps that it took to get you to that final execution. So now
Well,
that
and
I'm
then you can dissect those steps, be like, where in these steps are you not in agreement so that, we can see where we're not aligned, right?
and there's no, I mean, there's no right answer visually. So a visual execution it's a manifestation of all the other ideas. So if you can get all those, everyone on the same page with those ideas, there's a whole bunch of different ways to visually execute that same thing. So I just want the agreement on those ideas. If we're in agreement here, cool, then I'm going to go down this path and see what it looks like. What do you think of this? Yeah, it's too cute. Okay, I'll make it a little more serious based on this, as opposed to like throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and being like, what do you think? That doesn't work.
Yeah, which one do you
It
like?
doesn't
Pick
work.
and choose.
Yeah, never
Yeah.
works. They don't feel like they're part of the process. They feel like their role is now micromanaging, or their role is criticism.
Yeah.
When you're like, what do you think? I mean, have you ever asked somebody's opinion and they didn't give you negative feedback? Nobody gives,
Oh, no,
they think
we're
that's what
the
you need.
judgmental. Yeah.
Yeah. And not that they're necessarily mean, but when you say, can you do me a favor? Will you taste this and tell me what you think? They go
It's
in,
never, oh, it's delicious. It's, well, could be a little,
I need a little more salt, right? Because they're expecting, they think you have a problem with it. So let me try to figure out what your problem is with it. Do you think it's not salty enough? Maybe you could use a little salt. Right.
yeah,
And it's like
it's a
that.
great
We want to keep
analogy.
that out of the process as much as possible. You get everybody agreeing, then you show like, and here's what that might look like. And they go, oh my God, I see it because you've told me what to see. And now I see it.
Love that so much. I think that's super helpful to say, hey, how do you kind of contain a client or a situation where you need it to be to kind of keep things moving because you've also done the work to do the assessment to say this is the best solution.
Right.
It's not just like your opinion. It's like one component people don't realize designers do is all the back work, the strategy, the research, the what's the problem I'm trying to solve. Like all of these things are things you're charging for, and then, hey, by the way, I took all this time to do the assessment to give you the best solution based on what you're trying to communicate. It's not just a pretty picture, right? It's based on facts. It's based on human psychology. It's based on all of these things that you gather throughout your career that you're like, okay, now I can come up with great solutions because it's second nature to me. The difference between a junior designer and an experienced designer is exactly like you said. It's like I can do this faster because I can pull from my arsenal of knowledge.
Yeah. And everything I do, because of the kind of clients I work with, it's very based on them, because small businesses are very personal. So it's different than working with PepsiCo, or they're working with Gatorade or something, where you're working toward your market. I want to speak to this market. Here's how I speak to this market. Small businesses are like, this is me. This is my baby. This is the product that I created.
It's a reflection of them.
It's a reflection of them. So I'm trying to create something that is how they put their best face forward. It's almost like I'm suiting them up. I'm putting their best clothes on when they're going to prom, and I'm making sure that their hair is done the way that they expected it. And then when they walk out, they're the best version of themselves. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm doing. So it's a little bit of a different strategy than it is when you're trying to speak to your customers. Most of
And
my clients are trying to speak
therefore,
to customers. They will naturally speak to their customers, but they're
yeah.
trying to tell their story.
Yeah, it's very different. That's a great point. And you being more niche in what you do too, because now you're like, I understand this clientele is very different from a big corporate clientele.
Yes. It's
Yeah, that's really important.
and part of the way that we get them talking is there's a somewhat proprietary branding exercise that one of my business partners came up with. He uses it for a totally different purpose than I do. He uses it for brand strategy, but I've taken the same thing and used it just to get them talking. The basics of it are, I can show it to you one day. I can't pull it up right now, but every screen is like 9 to 10 different images. And one of them would be like a bunch of different kinds of watches. The next one is a bunch of different pairs of shoes. The next one is a bunch of different drinks. One of them is different breeds of dog. Okay. And all you do is you say, which one are you on this page? Your brand, your business, which one are you? And they're looking at a screen of shoes. And it's better when you have multiple decision makers in the meeting as opposed to one person, because then now they're like arguing because they're like, oh, we're the Doc Martens for sure because we're like tough and we're rugged. And then someone goes, no, we're not. We're the Uggs. And we're
And you
like,
guys just pull out the popcorn.
and
Go
well,
watch this go down.
and all we're doing is we're just listening to every word they're saying. And their answer does not matter. It's what they say to get to the answer that matters.
Mm.
So as
It's
they're
a
talking,
deselection selection process where they're
yeah,
like, well, are we more this or are we more that? We got to pick one. Yeah.
yeah. And the
The
things they
argument.
say are always really telling. One example that I can think of somewhat freshly is branding I did for Hey Y'all Farm, which is a farm in Nashville, North Carolina. And she had something that she said when I was showing. Oh, here's what it was. It was showing food, and there was like pizza, and there was salads and tacos and all sorts of things. And she said, "Well, from a literal perspective, we're the salad, right? That's what we do. We make all these grow these vegetables." She goes, "But pizza is our culture. Everybody has a seat here. Everybody is welcome. Everybody, deserves a seat at the table, that sort of." And she was saying those phrases for the first time because she saw pizza in this slide. And so
Whoa.
the whole
That would have never come up without the prompt
yeah, exactly. So
of
the
this
everybody has a
exercise.
table here aesthetic was carried over into all of our materials and things, and that's a bit of a segue. But getting them to talk in ways that they wouldn't even think to talk about their own business is fascinating. And the more people you have on the call, the better it is because they're like at each other's throats. They usually come to agreement at the end. But
I
sometimes they're
love
like,
that.
we're not, we're not Prince Purple Rain, we're Dark Side of the Moon, because the album covers is one of them too.
Yes, yes, I love it.
But it's all about how it's interesting to see how people perceive themselves, because that's the starting point of a brand, but how everyone else sees you is what a brand actually is.
Yeah. That's
You can
so true.
steer the narrative as much as as much as you possibly can. But at the end of the day, a brand is how everybody sees you. So the whole point is to try to steer the narrative as best as possible and be like, I hope y'all like me like I think you like me. And I hope I across like I think I'm coming across.
I
Yeah.
always say you have to be a mirror to the people that you want to attract,
Yeah.
right? They need to see themselves in the brand and the product and how you're speaking to them. If you're not mirroring that back, then you won't attract the right people. So I
Exactly.
think that's really important. But I love the forced exercise because that forced exercise is like, no, you have to choose something, and by the end of this, and making
It's
that
very
that
important.
choice.
And
Yeah,
then, so that's part of what I give back to them before I show them visuals. I say, here's what you said you are. Word,
you
word,
said it,
word.
not me. You
Yeah, you
said
said
it.
it, not me. I'm not making anything up. This is what you
Yep.
said you are. And you're just getting them to like nod.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's
hard to argue with that, right?
exactly. And then by
It's
the
like,
end
but
of it,
you said
you
this.
show them something that reflects who they said they are. And it's just so
That's
much
brilliant.
easier for them to see it at the end. So
That is so brilliant. I love that exercise. We'll have to go deeper in that in some other, conversation because that's really all these little tips and tricks that help design not be so objective, bringing some subjectivity to it is really necessary because it's just all over the place, right? People can just, I hate this, I love that. So it's really necessary that we figure out how to make things feel more like factual. Bringing that objectivity to it is necessary. Because otherwise people are just like flying by the seat of their pants. They're like, I love blue today.
yeah, well, especially because there is no right answer. There is
Yeah.
no such thing as the perfect design. There's really great design, don't get me wrong, but it's like there's no right answer. So you just need to get agreement on as much as you possibly can so that when you show a solution that solves that all the rest of that, it's like, cool. Well, yeah, that solves everything we talked about. Great. Now we're done.
Yeah. And so in thinking about the selling of, the work, I think it sounds like you're wearing multiple hats. You're a bit of a sales guy too. You're like, I have to go in and like pitch this in a way that I come out with the desired outcome.
Very
So
much so. Yeah.
is that something that you just learned over time?
Yeah, it's something I learned over time, and it definitely comes with being a more mature designer because I was definitely not great at it for the first, decade of my career. Um, I was probably like most younger designers, where you're just like, I'm the designer here. I'm telling you what the design is. And you'd get very offended if they didn't like your design, right? It was very like, it was, do they like it? Do they not like it? I don't use like or not like. I use effective or ineffective. Is it working or is it not? Right? There is no
Smart.
like to it. So I just don't take things as personal. There's sometimes when the client's like, yeah, I'm not feeling this. You're kind of like, oh, but it's so good, right? Like you want them to like it so
Why do
much,
you not see what I see?
but I don't push them on it. It's not a reflection of me at all because this is something that they are going to use to say this is who I am. No one's going to
Hmm.
know Jason Caldeira. I mean, they can find it out if they go to my website, but otherwise, I'm giving somebody a visual that they use to then speak about themselves. So they
Yeah.
just love it. It
Yeah.
needs to reflect them, not me.
Yeah.
Um, I've gotten a lot better with that as I've gotten older. I'm a lot better at reading them and things, but there's no like it's my way or the highway. Just because I'm the designer, I have the final say in design. I mean, if I'm doing a pro bono piece, then yeah,
You're going to be a bit more pushy.
I am the final say. We're not going to spin our wheels indefinitely. Here it is.
Then there's that too. Yeah, it's like
Otherwise, if you're paying me for this, then that's what you're paying me for.
your choice. Yeah. So is this something that just came with time, like experience and time and exposure? Did you ever have like a great mentor or somebody that took you under their wing to learn these things, or you just kind of figured it out as you went?
Yeah, a lot was figuring out as I went and seeing what works and what doesn't work. My business partner, Jim, the Jim in Louisville, has always been great with that. He's just always been a good presenter, a good speaker. He's a writer, so he just always has the natural way with words.
Storyteller.
The storyteller. He's one of the
Hmm.
kindest humans on the planet as well. So like he never took things personally, at least on the surface. Maybe sometimes behind the scenes he'd be like, "Man, that client sucked," but you would never know it when he was speaking to anybody. Um, so I would say, from a mentor perspective, he would definitely work in there, but otherwise it's just kind of seeing what works and what doesn't. And when I started my own thing, when I started Caldeira Co, it definitely changed for the better because I no longer felt like what I said was going to be reflective on two other people. Now it's
Hmm.
just me. It's me and my wife, but even more so just me, because she handles a totally different side of things. So
Yeah.
if I'm in a meeting with a client, it's just me and the client. We are the team, me and the client, not me and my partner breathing down the client's neck, being like,
Yeah. Or your
telling
boss
you what to
going,
do.
yeah, your performance review is going to reflect this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm part of their team and they're part of my team and they're an integral part of the process, um, which is part of why I get such deep relationships with them and I've become so friendly with them, because we're like, they don't see me as just a vendor to throw stuff to. They see me as the expert who's helping them with their business.
Yep. So you said the other day too, just thinking like more future focused, like you're seeing things evolving and we're in an inflection point right now. You hit on this a little bit, but I want to go back to it. You were talking a bit about how some of the smaller work has gone away, but that's leaving more room for bigger projects. What are your thoughts on that? Looking at like 2026, it's a fresh year. Hopefully we've unpacked a lot of 2025. We're seeing the signals to where it's taking us. What do you think like the future holds in design with all of these changes going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm immediately thinking of like the Dieter Rams quote of less but better. I think that there's a lot less work coming to us, but I think the work that is coming is more important and bigger and has numbers behind it that reflect that. Um, because we're not getting hit up with the quick one-offs like we used to, because people are using Canva and they're just having something done in AI. And as much as I'm against all that, if that's going to free me up to actually do real thinking work that actually needs my brain and not just my hands, then I'm all for it. And so
Yeah.
I've definitely seen a shift, um, from a design perspective. It's no longer just like, I need a logo, give me a logo, here's a logo, and the transaction's done. There's a lot more of the discussions that we've already had, the conversations I've had, getting to know the client, the strategy, the hand holding, walking them through the process, is way more important. I mean, we're a much more a service industry now than I think we've ever been, where it's like when somebody is paying for design, it's no longer as transactional as it used to be. For some people, it is. The cheap stuff is the Fivers of the world, the 99 designs is like, here's my prompt, give me a logo. Here's your logo. I like it. And they leave. But the work that I'm getting isn't that kind of work. And that might be slightly a reflection on my experience level and the kind of clients I work with, but I think it's the industry as a whole.
Hmm.
When people are ready to spend money, actual dollars, not the cheapy stuff, they need to be convinced that they made the right decision.
Mm.
So they need someone holding their hand through the process and not ghosting on emails and not like disappearing and then coming back with a solution. It's like, here's what I'm thinking now. Here's what I'm doing now. Here's how I pulled you in. Um, the higher dollar projects are like, that's when the client just throws money at the problem and goes away entirely. But this mid range, the 15 to $40,000 projects are the ones where it's like there's a little bit of hand holding. It's just enough investment that it feels significant, but it's not breaking the bank on any of them. But it's still real dollars, right? It's still real
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
The $250,000 projects are the ones where it's like, give that to the agency, they've got it. I have bigger fish to fry, and the agency goes behind the doors. They do the formal presentation and gives you something. But I'm on that other. I'm in that 15 to 40 range. I'm in that like,
Yeah.
I I can get really invested for a month to 2 months on your project for those dollars, and I basically become like another employee of yours. You're gonna know what I'm doing every step of the way. I'm gonna walk you through it. I'm gonna help you through it. I'm gonna stay on top of you, right? Because everybody has a million emails they need to answer. I'll
Oh
be
yeah. When you don't get the answer from the client, things stall. Yeah.
Yes, I'll be the one
So you gotta
asking
stay
that
after
question
them.
from the project manager, just like keeping things moving. Like,
Yep.
hey, no pressure. This is your project, so you can take time if you want to. But if you want it done, I need
If you want
answers.
it done by this, every day you delay is a delay in delivery. Yeah. It's like
I've
having to
recently
remind
started
them of
putting
that.
like kill dates on the project, where it's like first invoice at the launch, second invoice halfway through, third invoice at the end, or on this date, whichever comes first.
So you are invoicing at the beginning at kickoff before they've ever seen anything.
Correct.
Good
I
for
always
you.
um at least 50%, not at least 50%, 50%, or broken down into thirds depending on the project.
Little skin in the game. It's kind of like you don't get a contractor to come work on your house without putting down some money on material costs, right?
For sure. A client is way more invested in the project once they've actually invested in the project.
Yeah, I do the same with coaching. The coaching I do is you pay before the coaching session.
Yeah.
If you didn't pay, you don't get the coaching session, you know?
Yeah.
So,
There's really there's no way to not do that. One of my other business partners doesn't like charging clients up front, and we've been burned so many times by that.
I can't imagine that. Well, I've
And
seen it.
yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
well, then the client at that point, they've gotten the meal, they've ate the food, they're not hungry anymore. Why am I going to pay for this? You're like,
Yep.
no, that's not how this works. you know, like you will enjoy the process more if you've actually invested in it.
I think when you play poker, you kind of got to put the chips on the table, don't you?
Right. You don't just see if you win and then decide if you're paying.
Right. Exactly, exactly. I love it. That's so true.
But
Oh,
I think
that's a
the
good
biggest thing
analogy.
is the kill date. I don't really use that term for it, but the here's a start where I invoice and here's an end where I invoice. And the end invoice is either when the project is done or on this date. And that date's usually like 2 months out, let's say. So that even if
Nice.
the client decides to disappear and ghost and drag their feet, they're still getting an invoice for that full amount.
Yep.
So if you want to keep this thing moving, let's do it. Because then by the time I invoice that second invoice, if the client's still dragging their feet, they are the lowest priority on the planet to me. I've gotten fully paid for everything. Right.
Exactly.
I'm not saying
Exactly.
I'm not saying that I'm going to walk away with the money. I'll still work with them, of course. But it's like if it's not a priority to you, then it's definitely not a priority to me anymore.
Well, you get back what you put in.
Yeah.
If a client's not putting in the effort, then it's not important to them, and that's what they'll get back.
And I've
So,
never had a client, literally never had a client actually get to that payment and not be completed on the project. Like,
yeah, I don't think most people want to pay complete for what they haven't
yeah,
received.
they kind of go like,
So
"Oh,
that's really
I better get on
smart.
this. I better get on this,"
Hmm.
right? And that's
Hmm.
that's the whole point of it. It's like keep things moving, so we're not spinning our wheels indefinitely. That's what this price tag entails. This price tag is this amount of it's not time, and from an hourly perspective, but it is from a project perspective.
I,
This project
so
should be
many people need to hear what you just said. So many people. I mean, if you're a consultant, freelancer, running your own business, running a small agency, hopefully they took note because I think that is a huge nut you just cracked on how to kind of manage billing. Because so many people do get burned and they never get paid.
and it's always challenging. It's always a little bit of a game of poker trying to figure out what's the price you can give them where you make money and you don't scare them away. There's every client is different with what
Yeah.
scares, what doesn't. So
You
that
can't just be like, oh, it's 15,000 for all.
right, I can't do a
You'll
flat
never
rate.
get work.
All right,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, that would be great. I'd be okay with that. But it's like you also have to look at the investment of mental energy that the project's going to be, because that's part of what I have to charge for. If I'm working for like a mid to larger size business, I know we're going to take a ton of meetings, and I know there's going to be decision makers that aren't in the meeting that then come in at the last minute and change something. So I'm going to have to bill accordingly. Like I'm going to have to, that project is going to be more expensive than when I'm working one on one with a woman who owns a farm and I'm doing her
Yeah.
logo, right? And not because the one guy can afford it and the other one can't. It's more because of I know how big of a pain in the ass one is going to be and how seamless the other one's going to be.
And then that kind of ability to look at the client and size up the difficulty, did that just come with experience and time as well?
That came with experience, and it's still changed. I'm still learning, right? I will never stop learning. Every,
Yeah. If
every
you had a crystal ball, wouldn't that be awesome? Is
well,
this client going to be difficult or not?
and it's also crazy how numbers that scare the crap out of some people get paid on the same day for another client. And there's
Yeah.
almost no way to know what that is. So it's like
You
I
do the
try
best you can.
I always tell my clients I'm very comfortable having the money conversation. So if I throw numbers at you and you don't like them, let's talk about it. That's not
Yep.
going to make or break our engagement, right? It just needs to be like what
Let's right size the project.
yeah,
Yeah.
and what I'm trying to
Mhm.
find is the sweet spot between value for you and a profitability for me. And
Yeah.
when I can find that sweet spot where it's like I'm making money and you're happy with the value you're getting, now we both win. And there's no animosity, everybody's winning. It's the whole reason I don't do retainers because someone is always getting the short end of the stick. Someone's either they feel like they're spending too much money, not getting enough in return, or the designer feels like I'm making some money, but this guy is just like giving me so much stuff I can't keep up, and so I can't work on other projects. Retainers never work for a business of my size, so I don't
Yeah,
do that.
I have not seen retainers work well in this part of the business, period. Exactly to your point.
It
It's
would
like
have
you're
to
either
be a
taking too
significant.
much or you're giving, you're paying too much. So
It would have to be a retainer that if I had no other clients except for that retainer, I would be financially set for the month. That's the
then
only
you do
way
a
a retainer
retainer.
would work. Right. And that'd be the only reason it
$1
would
million
work.
dollars.
Seriously. Because then at least you're like, even if I work like it's a full time job and I can't bring on any other clients, I know at least I'm making money on it at the end. But
Yeah.
that's not what a client wants to spend on a retainer for a a smaller studio like ours. They don't want to be spending $40,000-$50,000 a month for us. They're going to put that towards an agency, a,
Yeah.
a bigger, more traditional agency. So
So Jason, 20 years of out on your own successfully, some ebbs and flows, reflecting back and reflecting forward, what do you think are some of the biggest kind of changes you've seen happen up until this point?
I mean, some of them are the ones that we've covered, which is about like what kind of work is actually coming to designers now. It's different work. It's not necessarily better. It's not necessarily worse, but it is definitely different. Also, there's way more people calling themselves designers. It's not too dissimilar from 20 years ago. You went to a record store and there was like 50 bands, and now you go to Spotify and there's a million. It's like
Everything's just so inflated. There's so much to choose from. It's saturated.
barrier to entry has gotten so low that really anybody can be what they call as a designer. They can say, I'm a hobbyist and I know these programs, therefore I'm a designer.
Hmm.
So our role has changed in that we really need to sell ourselves and let a client know why they even need to work with someone like us and why I'm the right answer for them and not maybe an entry level person or someone on Fiverr. I'm just using these examples over and over again, but it's an easy one to think of. You need to explain to them more than because it used to be a client knew they needed design work done. They hired a design firm. The design firm did it.
There was one model.
Yeah, there was one model. That was it. I need
Yep.
a designer to do this. The designer does that.
I need creative. There's an agency. I hire an agency. I brief them. They go off for 6 weeks. I get
Right. I come back, I
it
pay for
back.
it. Yeah. I mean,
Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
and that model is still the model for a lot of the corporate world. But
It's still there, but now you have more to choose from.
you have more to choose from and more niching down and more unique niches. I mean, there's, I'm spacing on their name right now. I think it's Kodo. I could be wrong on that, or Coda, something like that. That all they do is design for the beer industry, and like
Oh,
their entire shop is based on one very
one
specific
industry.
brewery.
Yeah.
They do breweries and they do beer cans, and so like you're finding these niche people, which I guess we kind of had when we were younger, where you'd have like the concert poster designer, the aesthetic apparatus, and I think they're in Seattle, where like if you were Death Cab for Cutie or Interpol or one of these bands, you went to them for your poster. Like that was kind of a
Yep. When you made it, you got a poster from them.
got a poster from them, right? Silk screen, and it was amazing. You sold it at your shows, but the niching down angle and um the knowledge that clients have coming into the engagement is way more than it used to be. We're in such an aesthetic design related world now where everything has to look good and everything has to speak to somebody. And I mean, the moment that personal branding became an expression is when like everything changed. That's when
Everyone needs branding.
everybody was hyper aware of the face they're putting out into the world, for good or bad. I think mostly for bad, but it kind of helps us out a little bit.
I'm there with you, but it is what
From
it
an
is.
industry perspective, definitely the clients are coming to you with a knowledge base that they didn't have 20 years ago. They didn't
Yeah.
have, they didn't even care to have. Like, that's not what I do. That's what you do. You're the design firm. I'm the whatever firm.
Yeah.
And now they come with
Some knowledge of aesthetics and
knowledge
what
of
that word
aesthetics.
even
Excellent
means.
idea. I really like these guys and I like these guys. I like what they're doing, but I can't articulate why. Um,
I know what I like, but I don't know, and I know what I don't like, that's for sure.
Definitely hear a lot of I know what I like and I know what I don't like, but I don't know
Yeah.
how to do it myself. You're like, okay, well, you're not expected to do it yourself. Number one, that's not an expectation that we should have of people. Like, just because Canva exists doesn't mean it should be used. It's a tool like any other tool, but if you know, so is a jackhammer, and it doesn't mean that you should just grab one and just start going at it with the street. Like, there's, you know what I mean? It's still
You're
a,
full of analogies today, and I love them all.
but like Canva. My biggest issue with Canva is that Canva's strength is in templatized design. It
Yeah.
can be used for other things. You can be a professional designer and use Canva. More power to you. That's great, but that's not its strength, and that's not what it's sold as. It's sold as like a do-it-yourself design for people who aren't designers.
Yes, 100%.
So that's
Yeah.
why non-designers love it, and that's why this has this infatuation because they're like, I can do this stuff because it's so fun because design is fun. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, you see results right away, but it's like you can do that one off, but then what if you need 10 more things and then each time you're doing them differently and then you have no cohesive branding or no cohesive messaging or that's
And
where
you look
people
like
get in
everybody
trouble.
else. You look like everybody else who's using Canva as well and spitting the stuff out. It's templatized stuff, and some of the templates are frustratingly beautiful. Like they look like something that I wish I designed, but all the person's doing is going in there and changing the headline out and the body copy and hitting
So
send.
someone can have something that looks exactly like yours.
Literally exactly like yours. Not even
Yeah.
kind of like, I mean, just the exact same thing. So um I'm too much. I enjoy the craft and the problem solving way too much to let myself use those templates or even AI to that extent. Like I have no interest.
I'm not
I know
gonna lie, I tried once or twice, and then as a designer, I'm like, I can do this way faster on my own. Thank you very much for your template.
and it's what I want to
This is
do.
taking me longer than getting it in Illustrator and just cranking it out, just trying to figure out how to navigate Canva and like how it works. I was like, okay, no, no, put it away.
No, I
Put
definitely
it back
think
in the box. Put it back in the box. I never
five,
took it out.
10 years ago, I think there was definitely a push for speed to execution. Like the faster you get there, the better. Everything's just fast, fast, fast. And I'm already seeing that people are backpedaling from that quite a bit. Um, AI may have actually helped people go,
I
whoa,
think so. Yeah.
I don't want to be spitting stuff out over and over again.
Well, AI slop is just slop, right? It's just extra junk. Yeah. So we're not seeing value in that.
And the promises of social media have kind of dissolved, and the promises of AI are dissolving. And I'm not saying it's not a big part of the equation because it is, but clients aren't coming to me with like, I need it by 3 p.m. Can you give it to me by 3 p.m.? Yes, sir. But that's not, everyone's so burned out by the culture of just speed that we're getting back a little bit into craft. And it's like, it's okay to take a little more time and
I love
process.
that you said that. And I feel like 2026 is going to be the year that everyone just takes a beat,
Yeah.
sits
Because our
back,
brain
and
can't
goes,
handle it. Our brains
this is
can't handle
madness.
it. Our brains
We've reached the
cannot take
point of saturated madness.
And the younger generation is really into that, which is super encouraging. I see
Yeah,
it in my kids.
same.
They still have their moments. Don't get me wrong. They still have their a million video games and they're online way more than I wish they were. But they also will sit and read a book for,
Yeah.
and they'll also play board games, and they have no interest in social media. Like their entire generation, I shouldn't say their generation, their entire like class that they're with, their friends and peer groups. None of them are on social media because they don't want to be. They have no interest. My nieces are a little bit different. They're a little bit more into that and partially age and boy versus girl, maybe. Um, but in general, it's like their younger generation is already, they grew up with this stuff. So it's not novel
It's
anymore.
not novelty to them. Yeah. Yeah. I think the millennials and after that was like all new. It was like, oh, an iPhone. I can talk to everyone whenever I want. And it was just like all the time on. But yeah, I'm seeing like alpha generation taking a step back and going, eh.
Fun anymore. I mean, the internet used to be fun, and it's not that it's bad. And I'm not trying to say that I'm purist and I'm only working in sketchbooks and I'm going to do keyline and paste stuff from now on with my design and not use. Not saying that. Um, but I definitely the pure enjoyment of how exciting it was for so long. That exciting level of the internet is and social media is just gone. And now it's
Yeah.
just a thing that we like sludge through. It's like, people are doing it because they feel like they need to do it. I got rid of all my social media accounts about 6 months ago. personal and professional. And I didn't, and I don't mean got rid of, like, I deleted the app from my phone. I shut them all down. I downloaded all an archive of all my old photos going back to, the first week of Facebook. Um, and I archived it all, put it in a folder, and deleted my accounts entirely. There's probably at this point, there's probably fake accounts with my name in them. But to me, it was like, it is not serving me anymore. It's not doing anything for me except making me angry.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of somewhat keeping me connected with people that I haven't seen in 20 years, but it's people I haven't seen in 20 years. I barely
So
have
how
time.
much do they really matter to me?
I barely have time for the friends that live down the street. So
Yeah.
why am I not devoting my attention and time to my physical community, not my online one?
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I did. And the second I did that, I still use Substack, and I kind of will fall on rabbit holes from time to time in there. Same with LinkedIn, because I feel like I need some presence that says that I'm.
Sure. Yeah. You got to be out there a little bit, especially as a business owner.
But I would have kept Instagram for that purpose if it wasn't tied to Meta and Facebook and Threads and all that.
Yes.
Because I would have done it purely as, like, here are the visuals. Here's a portfolio of what Caldeira Co offers. Now, if you see my portfolio, you can get a sense of what I'm all about, and then you can contact me.
Yeah.
But it was too tethered to the other stuff that I didn't want anymore. So I
And
just,
it's all become so corporatized. It's a money-making machine. It's about the algorithm that pushes whoever's feeding it cash.
yeah.
So that becomes its own, like, well, I'm a small business owner. Last thing I want to do is spend $1,000+ on advertising that's not going to yield anything. It's like,
A decade ago or so, when they changed how Instagram worked and you were no longer seeing the people you followed,
yeah,
when that changed, and it wasn't like, I follow these businesses because I'm interested in what they have to say. So that's what I wanted my feed to be. But when your feed was just ads and, like, girls in bikinis doing dances and,
look at me. Yeah.
some product from Timu that you don't need, and that was like your whole feed, it's like, well, this isn't giving me the whole reason I'm here to begin with. So the
It's
second,
just an advertising machine at that
just
point.
an advertising machine. And at that point, it was like, I've encouraged my clients to an extent to get off Instagram as well, unless they're actively using it. If you're just having a presence and then not
You're
really,
probably not being seen.
you're not being seen, and it's probably doing more harm than good. Because if I go to a client's website and their last post is from like 8 months ago, or a client's Instagram, and
Yeah.
their last post is from 8 months ago, I might think that they're not even in existence anymore. Like, did you
Yep.
guys go out of business? Are you, like, why? That does more harm than good. So, like, I wasn't actively updating it. I wasn't actively posting. I had like 300 followers, nothing of any sub. I was like, get rid of it. It's not doing me any good.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Well, I think we're in a whole new ball game in 2026. We're still yet to see where, everything kind of falls. But we're seeing some positive signs, I think. And hopefully, the industry will continue to grow and evolve. I love everything that you're sharing with our community because it's so important to hear them see someone thriving and see somebody that's like, hey, there's a framework to this. This isn't just guesswork. And design isn't just, what you like and the flavor of the day. It's very much a calculated, thought out. There's a science to the art. And I think your stories and your journey definitely help people see that. So, Jason, I appreciate you spending time with me today on Gab Design with Gabby. For those of you out there listening, we have a community called the Design Cohort, and that is where we post all of our podcasts. And you can tune in and continue to listen to us talking to more designers about their journeys and what works, what doesn't work, what is this wild, wild ride we're on in the design industry. And let's hope 2026 is a little bit better than 2025.
It could be worse. Or, maybe, you know what? Knock on wood. I shouldn't have said that, because
Can't be much worse, but let's all knock on wood. Thanks, Jason, for that.
we'll come back to this
And
episode if things are worse, and you can blame.
we'll definitely be talking to you again. You have so much more to add and a lot more we can go deeper on. But thank you for sharing your story with us
Of
today.
course. Thank you for having me.
All right.